You lie down. Your body is exhausted, but your mind remains awake. And the more the silence grows, the louder it becomes inside you. Old thoughts, imaginary conversations, scenarios that may never happen. And you begin to believe the problem is sleep. But maybe it isn't. Maybe what is keeping you awake is not too much energy. Maybe it's fear. Maybe your mind is telling you that it isn't safe to stop. But what if that isn't true? What if what you call an active mind is just a repeated story? Today, we are going to enter that invisible space between the body that wants to rest and the mind that insists on staying on guard. Because maybe your mind is lying, and when you realize that, something begins to change.
You lie down. Your body sinks into the mattress. Your muscles release. Your breathing slows. But the mind rises. It begins organizing conversations that have already happened, rewriting decisions, anticipating scenarios that may never exist. And you notice something strange. The body asks for rest, but the mind demands vigilance, as if relaxing were dangerous, as if stopping meant losing control. Maybe you know this. Maybe even now, as you listen to me, your body is still, but inside, everything is racing. And that is exhausting. More exhausting than the entire day. It is not the work. It is not only the routine. It is the invisible excess. Thoughts that repeat like an echo in a closed hallway. Worries that never reach an end. Ideas that begin and never conclude. The mind creates an endless middle. No beginning, no ending, only repetition. And the body pays the price. The jaw tightens, the shoulders rise, the stomach hardens. You try to rest, but something inside you keeps running, as if you were always late for something you do not even know what it is. Pause. Notice this, without judgment. Perhaps at some point in your life, you learned that relaxing was dangerous, that lowering your guard meant losing something, that sleeping deeply was carelessness. So your mind created a permanent alert system. It says, stay alert, review it one more time, anticipate the worst. It believes it is protecting you, but that protection became a prison. And you began living in a state of almost resting, almost at peace, almost calm, but never whole. You thought it was the end, without realizing it was the beginning. You keep functioning, you complete tasks, you answer messages, you smile when necessary. But inside, there is an exhaustion that does not appear in photos, a silent collapse. The mind does not stop because it is afraid of silence, because in the silence, something might be felt. And perhaps what needs to be felt has been waiting for a very long time. Come back with me for a moment. If the body already knows how to rest, why is the mind still fighting? There is a moment, almost imperceptible, when you realize this is not normal. It is not natural to live in constant internal war. It is not natural to turn every pause into planning. It is not natural to rest and still remain exhausted. And something in you begins to question. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a whisper. What if I didn't need to monitor everything? This is the invisible point, the beginning. And perhaps you did not even notice when it started.
Breathe again, very slowly. When the body finally slows down, the mind begins to hear its own echo. And the silence, which should be rest, turns into pressure, like a closed room. You try to fill it with music, with screens, with noise. Because when everything becomes too quiet, old thoughts start knocking at the door. Memories that did not ask to return. Words that remained stuck in your throat. Decisions that still burn. Perhaps now you realize it is not that your mind does not stop. It is trying to avoid something. There is a kind of loneliness that does not depend on other people. You can be surrounded, you can have conversations, you can even laugh. But inside, there is a space no one accesses. And that is where the mind runs. It runs so it does not have to be alone with itself. But the more it runs, the farther you become from yourself. And even if your mind drifted for a few seconds while listening to me, come back. This loneliness is not weakness, it is unexplored territory. The body rests because it is exhausted. The mind does not stop because it is afraid. Afraid of feeling old sadness, afraid of recognizing frustrations, afraid of admitting that certain things hurt more than you let show. So it creates movement. Thinking feels safer than feeling. Planning feels more comfortable than facing the emptiness. But there is a subtle detail. What you avoid feeling continues to exist. It only changes form. It becomes anxiety. It becomes tension. It becomes emotional insomnia. Pause. Breathe. Do not run now. There is a moment when everything slows down, when you sense a strange space, an emptiness, and the mind interprets this as a threat, because we were taught that emptiness means loss. But what if emptiness is space? Space to reorganize, space to breathe, space for something new to begin. When everything seemed still, something breathed. Perhaps you did not notice, but there was a micro moment when you were not thinking about anything, and nothing bad happened. Come back with me. You survived the silence. It is not an explosion of light. It is not a dramatic turning point. It is almost imperceptible. A second in which you observe the thought instead of being carried away by it. A second in which you notice, my mind is racing. And in that exact moment, you are not the race. You are the one who observes. That is the opening. Small, subtle, but powerful. Because something different begins there. Not the end of the noise, but the beginning of awareness.
Breathe once again, slowly, as if you were returning inward. There is a rare moment when you notice the thought before stepping into it. It begins, and you see it. You do not react immediately. You do not dive in. You simply observe. And in that microscopic space, something shifts. The mind is still moving, but you are no longer completely inside it. Perhaps now, as you listen to me, you notice a thought passing by. Do not fight it. Just see it. This small gesture is greater than it seems. It is the beginning of a new relationship with yourself. You are not trying to silence the mind. That would be another war. You are allowing, and allowing is not giving up. It is releasing the need for absolute control. The mind runs because it believes it must solve everything, but not everything needs to be solved right now. Some things need to mature, others simply need to be felt. And when you stop squeezing the thought, it begins to lose intensity, like an echo that finds space to dissolve. Come back with me for a moment. Notice, your body is breathing on its own. Perhaps your life also knows how to organize itself when you stop monitoring every detail. This is not forced gratitude. It is something much simpler, a recognition. You survived your own mental excesses. You survived the restless nights. You survived the inner demands. There is strength in that. And when you recognize it, something inside relaxes. The mind begins to understand that it does not need to prove anything all the time, that your worth does not depend on constant vigilance, that existence does not need to be monitored in order to continue. This is where the vibration changes, not through effort, but through understanding. When the mind stops consuming all your energy, the body begins to return something: clarity. Not that electric, anxious clarity, but a gentle clarity. You begin to notice patterns, repetitive thoughts, inherited fears, expectations that were never truly yours. And by recognizing this, you stop feeding certain cycles. No fight, no drama, just awareness. And when awareness changes, perception changes. And when perception changes, reality begins to reorganize itself, silently. Perhaps you start noticing small shifts, less impulsive decisions, less reactive responses, more space between stimulus and reaction. This creates something interesting, a kind of flow. It is not directly about money. It is not about numbers. It is not about promises. It is about available energy. When the mind stops wasting strength on internal war, that strength begins to circulate. And what once felt blocked begins to flow. Relationships, ideas, subtle opportunities. Life responds to your inner state. Without announcement, without spectacle. In that almost invisible gesture, everything began to move.
Breathe. Notice the air entering. Notice the air leaving. Nothing extraordinary happening. And yet, everything different. The mind has not stopped completely. It still produces thoughts, but now it no longer dominates the entire space. There is a silent center within you that remains steady. Thoughts come, thoughts go, and you remain. Perhaps your mind will still try to speed up at times. Perhaps tomorrow it will run again for a few moments. But something shifted at the beginning of this process. You know you are not the race, and that changes the middle, and inevitably transforms the ending. No dramatic effort, no grand promises, just sustained awareness. Before, the body rested alone. Now, the mind begins to accompany it. You notice your breathing during the day. You notice the touch of water on your hands. You notice the ground beneath your feet. Small returns. And each return reduces the internal noise. Come back with me for a moment. Feel your shoulders. Feel your jaw. Soften them slightly. Not because you have to, but because you can. There is power in being able to relax. When constant vigilance decreases, something opens. It is not mystical in an exaggerated sense. It is simple. You begin to trust your own ability to handle whatever comes. And trust reduces noise. It reduces the need to predict every scenario. It reduces the impulse to control the uncontrollable. This is the portal. Not an external event, but an internal reorganization. And when your inner state reorganizes, the way you see opportunities changes. What once seemed like a threat begins to look like possibility. What once felt like scarcity begins to reveal movement. Without forcing, without chasing, just noticing. When the mind rests alongside the body, your energy is no longer trapped in constant tension. It circulates. And when it circulates, life begins to respond. Conversations flow more easily. Ideas arise with greater clarity. Decisions become simpler. Even the material world reflects your inner state, not as a reward, not as a miracle, but as a mirror. You stop acting from fear and begin acting from presence. And presence creates alignment, and alignment creates flow. Come back with me. Notice how you are now compared to the beginning. Nothing spectacular happened. No fireworks, no dramatic transformation, and yet something was reborn. Your relationship with your own mind has changed. You do not need to silence it by force. You do not need to fight every thought. You learned to observe, and observing reorganizes. The body rests, the mind learns to follow. The beginning was restlessness. The middle was internal confrontation. The ending is integration. Calm, presence, space. Take one more deep breath. Feel the weight of your body. Feel the lightness of your mind now. And if at any moment it begins to run again, you already know the way back. Silent, simple, available.